Hey, everybody. Welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. This is episode number 87. I'm getting up there, man. Gonna hit triple digits in a couple weeks, so that's kind of cool. Thank you, Max Aguiar, for asking about me. I'm doing all right. I appreciate you, man. I just got a little behind. I kind of front loaded last weekend and then didn't do anything this week because my back was hurting. That's why I did the last two episodes about pain because it was pretty personal. So thank you, Max, again for asking. You're too nice. Max is from Janky Jank Productions, along with excuse me, Logan Dimer, and they make movies together, and they also have cool videos about janky video games. Sorry, the reason I'm really laughing at that, there's an episode of 30 Rock, and I always think about it. It was a live episode. I think it's in season four, and maybe season five, and they did it on the SNL studio. So Tina Fey was very familiar with that landscape. And there's a part where she was talking about some diet pill she was taking or something, and she's talking to Alec Baldwin with it, and he's like, weren't there some problems like with that pill?" And she's like, "Yeah, they did tests on lab rats, and the lab rats had a problem with their what's the word I'm looking for, brains." And sometimes I have those senior moments where I feel like I can't remember the word brain, and that's frightening. So, I want to talk about qualified immunity. Um, Thank you. Come on in here, silly cat. Appreciate Logan. My kid Logan let the cat in because cat was being a butthead. Less than 2 minutes into this thing. Um, I've done very brief um, research on qualified immunity. It rang a little home with me because the Supreme Court case again for qualified immunity. The first one was in 1967. It was Peel versus somebody I already forgot who it was. But basically there were a lot of protests, obviously in the 60s, and there were people who were getting arrested by the police and then arresting that same officer for a civil rights violation. Which, let's be honest, many of those, I would say probably the vast majority of them, were justifiable, but sometimes they were frivolous. And so it put the cop in a bad position of, hey, I'm supposed to do my job and uphold the law. And if I do that, I can get sued for that. So that's why qualified immunity came. Like I said, the year I was born, 1967, was close to the height of the civil rights movement. I mean, we had volatile years before that. We had, and I would argue the most volatile year was 1968, actually, when Martin Luther King was killed. Bobby Kennedy was killed. I believe there were a couple other people, civil rights leaders, killed. It was an extremely volatile year in this country. We had the riots in Watts, Los Angeles, California. We had riots during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. The Tet Offensive took place in January of that year in Vietnam. So 1968 was a crazy year. Nixon was elected. I mean, it was just, and I mean, it was nuts, just a nutty time. So qualified immunity was kind of just that. That's what that was for. I haven't looked into it too heavily, but the reason I bring it up is because just yesterday, New York City decided they are taking qualified immunity away from the police officers of that, and that's usually what qualified immunity, who it's usually for. Um, and the problem is, it's now been no. You can piss off, cat. I am not happy with you right now. 2 minutes later, and you want to go out. What a jerk. Um, Thank you again, Logan. You can throw him out the window. That cat could use some qualified immunity right now, man. Stupid. But so let me try to process my thoughts here because I should have thought about what I want to say a little bit more before I just started rambling here. But the qualified immunity almost feels like it's a second union for the police, okay? And that's the problem, is that we see guys do egregious breakages of the law. They're here to uphold the law, but they shouldn't be above the law when I talk about the police. So you shoot a guy in the back and his family can't come after you in a civil case. No, this is why you got to be better. This is why we need better educated police, better trained police, and just better guys going into the system. Also, a point here that I'm kind of proud of myself for thinking of that I haven't seen bandied about during this issue or this debate, if you want to call it that, is why don't we take a little bit of the money that has militarized the hell out of these major metropolitan police forces like New York and LA, even Denver, and maybe take some of that and put that towards a fund, a legal fund, where hey, you're a bad cop and you fucked up. Okay, yeah, we're gonna help bail you out legally, but you're done. You cannot be a cop anywhere else. You shoot a guy 7 times in the back because you think he may have been reaching for something. You paralyze him or kill him, and we have to pay for that now. We have to pay for a chunk of his care and maybe extra than that. Then I'm sorry, you're done. You don't get to be a cop anymore, and but we'll handle that rather than getting a tank or a howitzer for the police force. How about that? Let's use our money wisely because I'm fine with funding the police. But and that goes back to what I've talked about before about defunding the police. It was a misnomer. I think all the people understood it too. Oh, you want to defund them? You don't want any cops? No, that's not what we want. We want them not to be armed to the teeth against peaceful protesters. That's it. That's pretty simple. Yeah, sometimes they do need riot gear. Sometimes they do need automatic weapons. Do they need all these Hummers I see them going around in? Do they need all the body armor all the time? No, they don't. They don't need to be. They're not a branch of the military. The military has all that shit. Hey, call in the National Guard if things really go shitty, police, because you have that option. So, qualified immunity. There it is. There's a very brief description, probably, to be honest, not a very accurate description. I want to talk about it a little bit, though, because, like I said, it came up in the news yesterday. And I also realized that Colorado, I thought they had, but I wasn't sure, back in June when the George Floyd riots were, I think, starting to quell a little bit. I wouldn't even call them riots. It's not fair to call them riots because the worst rioting I saw here in Denver was people spray painting the hell out of the Capitol and a little violence against property, but I didn't see a lot going on. Cops violent against protesters, but I didn't see a lot going on against the cops, to be honest with you. I told you guys before I was at the Elijah McCain rally, the daytime version, where the police mobilized against us and we just took over the streets. It was pretty sweet. And then later that night, there was a Strings concert and they tear gassed people, families, kids. You can watch the footage. Go find it. It's fucking offensive. It's disgusting. I'm trying not to be any cop, but it's getting harder as I get older. It's weird. I'm one of those guys that's going more left as I get older. I thank my kid for that. My kid has got me more woke, and that's nothing sounds whiter than a 53-year-old man saying woke. But I am happy that I have a kid that's on Twitter all the time showing me, hey, look at this stuff that's going on. Now, I may not be getting the most accurate portrayals. I admit that. News is whatever you want it to be anymore, really. It's how there are QAnon people that believe that shit's true. So I'm probably on the left side of that. I admit that. But I think I prefer being on this side because as a pro-person, anti-capitalist, anti-greed stance or place that I'm in at this point in my life, and will probably write it out for the rest of my life. Um, so, without trying to get into the racist police system too much, let's continue with the qualified immunity theme. So Colorado, I was going to say, back in June, we also stopped Colorado qualified immunity for the entire state, as far as I could tell by the small part that I read, or the small snippet that I read. Like I said, should have done more research. But that's why I'm proud to be part of this state. This state seems to be a pretty reactive state. It's a weird state. Like, hey, less than a week ago, we had a major shooting here. A guy went in with an AR-15 and killed 10 people in the King Soopers in Boulder. For those of you that don't know about Boulder, Boulder's about 20, 30 miles from Denver. It's a city. It's where the University of Colorado is, and it's also very known for being very liberal and hippie. But there's also a lot of old money there. But it's a great place. It's beautiful. It's right in, backs up right against the Flatirons, which are the mountains right that go right into the Rockies. It's a beautiful place. And we had a horrific event there less than a week ago. And so my next video, I might talk about AR-15s. I don't understand the argument for. I really don't. And I'm going to probably make a bunch of arguments against. And man, I don't know. Man, that was a loud, ugly car that just went by. But for qualified immunity, I'm proud of Colorado. We were at the forefront of that, at the forefront of weed, at the forefront of a lot of things, but also, unfortunately, at the forefront of mass shootings for some reason. I don't know why, but it is what it is. See you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in, and maybe I'll go AR-15 on the next episode. Maybe not. See you next time. Thank you. Bye.